All right, we're recording.
All right.
All right, what's up, everyone?
Welcome to the first episode ever, Moving on Sports, with your hosts, Sam and Ryan.
Let's get it. Woo!
Turkey edition.
Gobble, gobble. Gobble these nuts. Oh, yeah. Can we swear? I guess.
Yeah, I think we can say whatever we want. So,
yeah, just go for it and get demonetized later.
All right, starting off a little sports today. NFL recaps. Bears, Lions. Lions hold on, 23-20. Bears absolutely collapse at the end. Classic fashion. Should we watch the last 30 seconds real quick, just because it's so unbelievable?
I like that I could draw. I put some drawings on it.
I have so many thoughts about this, and I know
time is ticking away, down to 25 seconds. The Bears are out of field goal range. They have one timeout. It's third and forever. Williams at the line, tapping his head. We're down to 15 seconds.
Definitely think Caleb kind of
out of the shotgun.
I think there should be some blame on him.
Time is moving. Gotta go under 10 seconds now. Oh my goodness. Back to Williams. He's ready to throw. He'll throw it down the middle of the field. Incomplete at the horn. The game is over. The Bears won't even get to.
I think this is where you got to pause it, right?
Yeah. So I think first it's just a bad throw, And actually, so let's take a step back. So I was thinking, how being called a jack of all trades is kind of a bad thing, right? You want to be specialized and stuff, right? So so other than Travis Hunter, which maybe we'll get to that later, you want especially for sports, right? You're really good for spaceman, your quarterback, whatever. But then I was thinking for actors, it's the exact opposite, where you want you don't want to be typecast in anything, right? You don't want to be the villain, you don't want to be the good guy, you want to have range or whatever. I just thought that's kind of interesting that that's the one thing where it's complete opposite, where it seems in everything else where we're going towards hyper specialization. But the lead into that is you can kind of tell that Caleb is a shitty actor, he couldn't pull that off. And he's a diva and he's blaming everyone but himself. And I think now he's fired 2 coaches, right? And I think there's something to be brewing that your number 1 overall pick got 2 coaches fired, and maybe leading towards another QB pick. And maybe not this draft, but the one after it.
I love it. That's honestly, I was thinking the exact same thing. I thought Eberflus, 33 seconds on the clock when he gets sacked, and then you only run one play. I don't think I've ever in the NFL seen one play in a high intense pressure situation, only one play run in 30 seconds. That's nuts.
And you compare that to the Packers, right? Where we're going, you didn't see it, but going down to get the field goal, and we got eight plays off and get the field goal. And I don't know, it just makes me feel so happy and I guess appreciative of having good coaching matters in the NFL, and maybe the NFL more than any other sport, right? Especially for the end of the end of a drive, time crunch situations. And it seems maybe more than half the coaches in the league aren't really good at it, and they're good at designing plays and all that stuff, but when push comes to shove, it seems they're running with their turkeys with their heads cut off to be topical. So I think that's kind of interesting that all this effort and money is in NFL, but it's still a problem area for a lot of teams.
Yeah, 100%. And they have guys who literally just do when to call a timeout, 2-minute warning. They don't play enough Madden. I honestly don't think it's that hard. I think it's it's easy to look back, but if you call a time, even if 10 seconds runs off the clock and you realize this whole chaos is happening, you call a timeout at 20 seconds, you come over to the sidelines, and you can at least then say, hey guys, here's our one play. We need to get 10 yards to make this field goal at least a little bit more doable. If the guy gets tackled in bounds, I think you can run a play. If you had 20 seconds, I think you can run a play, get tackled in bounds, run up and spike it, and hopefully have a second or 2 left. You got to at least take.
So here's maybe like a little conspiracy here. One's if Caleb did that on purpose to get Eberflus fired.
The changing of the play is bizarre to me.
Right?
Reading
Like that kind of leads
crazy.
credence to it, right? Like he purposely, like whatever, if you win that game, it doesn't really matter. Like he looks good, right? Because he led the drive and whatever, and like the end of the thing, and if he doesn't, doesn't have to deal with, if he throws, because he also has like that pick record, right? So maybe he has a little Aaron Rodgers in him where it's like, I'm not going to do risky throws because I want to maintain my current streak of not throwing interceptions. And, like reports I think came out like this morning, yesterday, right, about like the locker room was completely off and like, wanted him gone. Like, I mean, he could have totally just tanked the game just to, get him gone, and like for his career, if you have that, coach, like that tanks your career, right? And so like you take the punishment now to get the head coach out of the way, and then you can move on, right? Like I think there's something to be said there. Like I wouldn't be surprised.
100%. One thing that I thought was weird was how many players were throwing Eberflus under the bus.
Yeah,
and he hasn't done anything, and I feel like he easily could be flaming some guys too, because there's a talented players and they're just doing dumbass stuff. Even like the end there, they're like switching the wide out and the tight end, and they're just wasting so much time. And it seemed like it was at this point, like the emotionless expression on his face.
Yeah.
He's just like watching and he's like, fuck this. I'm out.
Yeah.
Like I'm dead man walking anyway. They don't want me here. It doesn't matter. Like the writing's on the wall.
Mm-hmm.
It is what it is. Like he probably just doesn't really care. And I do think Caleb, Eberflus was getting ripped a lot because he said he did everything how he wanted, or he wouldn't change it. And I think if you look back at what he called like a quick hitch route, which I think if it's incomplete, that play like still maybe allows for a field goal, where then Caleb changes it to a hitch and go, which is like a great move. And then he throws a shitty pass. Honestly, I thought he might have been able to, like Rome was pretty close catching it.
Yeah. And like that seemed like closer than like people will give credit for it. Like, and that's maybe you win the game right with a bomb and then it's like whatever, right? Then it's like all on you. I mean, like he's a diva, right? So it's like everything has to be about him.
Yeah, and he definitely has been throwing him under the bus. Is it going to go well? I have no idea. I mean, I think the Bears are just in this horrible situation now where they keep drafting a quarterback, and their quarterback and their GM and coaching, they're like off by a year or two every single time. And they just never have this cohesiveness when they start these kind of like longer term projects. And they just are in this cycle of keep having a quarterback that they think can be the guy, getting rid of the coach, giving the quarterback a couple years, and then it just goes on and on. It's nuts.
So if you're the Bears GM, like given what we've seen so far this like season, like would you still have drafted Caleb? Would you trade for like a haul? What would you have done, like given what we know so far?
To be honest, given what we know, I think I still like Caleb. I think he's a super talented guy. Some of the throws he's made this year are just insane, like down the sideline.
That one to Swift. I don't know what game that was. Maybe the Vikings game where he was like, that was pretty incredible.
He made some great throws against the Packers to come back on that drive. I think he's playing well. I do think he does have that Aaron Rodgers, little bit of like nervous turnover thing, which I think can be good, but also can hurt you. Like it's good. Obviously, turning the ball over kills you, but
I think like for a rookie, like you need to like I think it's like you need to push it. Like you need to push it as far as it goes, right? Like when you're established vet, then you like pull it back, right? Because your ceiling's kind of already predetermined. But like as a rookie, like I think it's a bad thing if you don't throw picks. And like that might be a hot take or whatever, but it's like it shows that you're not being aggressive enough. And like one thing I think gets completely lost in the conversation is like he leads the NFL in sacks. And it's like so he has like the same Fields kind of thing where it's like, oh, okay, he does all these amazing plays, right? And Fields does amazing plays. But then you look at like the nitty gritty of it, like taking sacks is a quarterback stat, right? And so, and like sure, his offensive line, there's like free on block, but like he takes so much time in the pocket and like he has a quick release and like his footwork. I mean, that's Fields' major issue, right? Like he couldn't his feet were just not quick enough, and so you couldn't do like the 3-step drop, the 5-step drop, get it out. Like he basically couldn't even do quick hitters. But so it's like he takes all these sacks and he does like the amazing plays, but it's like if you can't sustain drives, without like a miracle happening, then it's like you're not going to be successful in the NFL because like especially with the defense, they play the too high shell. They force you to do the dink and dunk underneath, and like so we saw the Packers Dolphins game. It's like you can have gaudy QB numbers where it's like 80-90% completion percentage, great yards, everything looks great, but you're not going to win the game because in today's NFL it forces you to be aggressive, and you have to basically like shoot past the too high shell so that they can't just do that anymore, and they have to cause them to react. And it's like, okay, great, like you look good, and like maybe that's you hear like the new term, fancy terms like business decisions, and it seems like they're just doing a lot of business decisions. I thought like DJ Moore, he had like a nice line, but like he got targeted a lot, and like he didn't really kind of produce. One thing too, I think about like Keenan Allen being on the team, like his line looks good and his line for the season looks good, but not to be everything about the Packers, but I guess all roads come, lead to Rome, right? Type of thing. But well, so like the thing is like, so you look at like the Preston Smith trade or like last year, like the Rasul Douglas trade, like, and so I think like opportunity cost is something that's not really focused on a lot in the NFL, where it's like if you have a great guy and he's a vet, that's awesome, and like leadership, all that good stuff. But big thing is like he's taking snaps and like catches away from like Rome Odunze. Like if it's just Rome and DJ, like Rome could be way more of a guy, and he's had a nice year. And then maybe you could find like some of like the practice squad guys, like Velus Jones is kind of, like didn't amount to anything, got cut, and he was kind of forced, like kind of like Amari Rodgers for the Packers, right? Where it's like, we signed Alan Lazard, Cobb, and so like Amari was forced in a role that like that's the only thing left for him on the team. And so it's like if you had a position, maybe Velus, because he had good speed, relatively decent hands. If he got more run time, build up his confidence, then that pick wouldn't have been wasted. So I think there's something to be said a lot about opportunity cost of when you sign someone, not only like the money and like the pick compensation, all that stuff, but it really delays your development of young people. And like, you really need to, take your lumps of trusting in young guys, right? Like you made the pick, like you saw something there, you have to commit to it. And I think the Bears don't commit, like, and you compare that with the Lions, like Jared Goff, right? He was terrible for 2 years and they committed, right? And I think that's, where they are now, being a mid team with a good record.
And they did a good job building around him. I mean, they gave him Gibbs, St. Brown, Laporta.
Yeah.
You got to like, you're right though about the NFL is a young man's game. Like I think the Packers show that. I think a lot of these guys, they're ready to come in, Gibbs, and play right away. Neighbors was playing great. Marvin Harrison Jr. had some great games. Roman, like you got to just find out what you got, because you got 4 years and then the 5th year option. You got to just like get him out there, see what's going on. Is it great to have a guy like Keenan Allen to learn from? Yeah, but maybe not.
But that's like the coach's job, like I never got that. Like the vet, like you have coaches for a reason, like I don't know.
I mean, I like it. I like having a guy like Keenan Allen, but maybe in like 2 years when he's like 34, Mercedes Lewis, it's like he's getting a little bit older and he's not taken away though. And I think to your point, DJ Moore, Keenan Allen, Rome. I wonder if DJ Moore could be more of and I feel like everyone loves this comp for like everyone nowadays, but like Deebo Samuel, Jaden Reed, a little bit more like in the slot, and then you could have Rome and Keenan on the outside. But the Bears are just so disorganized that it's just chaos. And but I will say they did come back and kind of give it to the Lions in the second half. The Lions, they're kind of dealing with a lot of battles, like injuries. Yeah, and I think the linebacker just tore his ACL. He's out for the year too. Hutchinson's out.
Yeah, like their third one, right? Like,
it's getting pretty bad over there. But I do think, like, when you look at these two teams, I think they perfectly exemplify their coach. Like Dan Campbell just battles. He's tough. He's just gonna like whoever's
Cheater.
out there, we're going to give it our all, and we're going to like make it happen. And Eberflus, say what you want, but just the vibes are not there. Like no one respects him. He lost that weeks ago, and like it's not something you get back. You never see a guy lose the locker room and then like 3 weeks later, everyone's like having a good time. It usually ends up leading to situations that we've seen the last 3 weeks, and here we are.
If I was the Bears,
one good thing I want to say is the Bears at least won 4 games this year, so they're not even going to get. Hopefully, they don't even get a good draft pick.
Yeah. Yeah. But this draft is kind of like I think it's. I mean, I've only looked a little bit at it, but it definitely doesn't seem as good as last year. Like last year was a year like with all those like tackles. You know, like I mean, I think they kind of needed that. You know, like D-line. I mean, it starts in the trenches, and I think that's what comes down to the Lions is like they prioritize the trenches, and like every team that does, you know, ends up bearing fruits of the labor, and it takes a while, right? You know, like I mean. What Eagles? That Davis guy, or no? Like, who's that guy that like fell to the Eagles that the Bears could have drafted? That stud,
Jordan Davis.
Yeah. No, is it Jordan Davis or is it? There's two. There's Jordan Davis and the second Georgia guy.
Pretty sure you're talking about Jordan Davis.
No, there's Eagles D line.
Yeah, Jordan Davis.
Yeah, Jordan Davis. Jalen Carter. No, Jalen Carter.
Oh, Carter. Oh, yeah.
Remember, because like the Bears had a chance to get him, and then they ended up trading back, right? And then they skipped over him.
They got their right tackle, yeah.
Yeah, and he's been, I think, okay. I don't know, but like, I mean, if you had Jalen Carter, I mean, like, holy cow, you know? And like, the whole thing is like a locker room thing. Like, it's like bet on your team, bet on yourself, right? Like, that's a freak talent. Like, you know, they don't make that many 300-pound dudes that move like that. You know, like I think it's like you always just have to do that, you know. But I guess that's why the Bears are where they are. I guess thinking so like Lions Packers next week. Like, how are you feeling about the Lions? Are you nervous about them? Like, I mean, I think they're on the downswing. I think they peaked too early.
I'm nervous just because I mean, I think they're just a tough football team, and they just seem to play really well. And some of their play designs I think are a lot of fun. It's going to be a fun battle to watch Ben Johnson versus Matt LaFleur play call.
Mm-hmm.
You're right though about their defense. I do think they're like the injuries and stuff are adding up. Mm-hmm. They only have one loss right now though, right? So
yeah, I just one.
It's hard. It's one of those weird. They're kind of like the Chiefs where they just seem to find a way, and you're waiting for them to kind of collapse, but they aren't doing it. So I don't know. Eventually, it's got to mean something, right? I think it's important. Because we lost the first game, it's a lot more important for us. They seem to play like remember when they came in Lambeau and they beat us to knock us out of the playoffs a couple years? They kind of have like a they don't care as much attitude, and I think that it's a little bit of their advantage. And I think we're playing a little bit with that this year, and just having fun and like being free. And if we can do that, I mean, we can definitely beat them. I'm not like scared of them, but it's going to be a challenge for sure. It's a divisional game, man, in the NFL. You know, what do you think?
I don't think so. I think they're getting too cute. I think they've won by too much, and everything's kind of like, sure, you had the injuries, but like everything's gone their way. And like when you're doing scheme passes to like, you know, Penei Sewell or whatever to like throw, it's like you're like smelling your own shit. And, you know, they're like, oh, we're the best. And like, it's like major little brother syndrome. Like, I think if you stop their run, which is a big if, but like the Packers have like bottled up. I think they're like the third or fifth in like run defense now in the NFL. You stop that and you force Jared Goff to like carry it, you know, like sure, big stop, but or big if. And then you lock down Amon-Ra, you know, like I think they're completely beatable. And it's like then Dan Campbell starts freaking out and goes for it on fourth downs. You know, they're pressing, and then like if that doesn't go well, then the whole game spirals out of control and they lose, you know. So I mean, like how that Bears game went, and like the Lions, like like they you know what they remind me of? The Cowboys last year, where they beat up heavily on bad teams, and then everyone's like smelling their farts. But it's like once you start playing like good teams, good football at the end of the year, like you're just not ready for it because you're not like battle tested, you know, like you're not focused on the fundamentals. And, you know, and like you said, like the injuries, you know, I think the defensive injuries, like starting to pile up. Like their cornerbacks are not that good, like they're the draft ones. And like, Brian Branch is great and whatever, but he's a dirty player too. And like, so if he, if he goes Batman, Joker, Vigilante, tries to like get bounties on people, like, maybe the whole team just gets ejected from the league because, that's just filthy football. And this is a family sport now, like Taylor Swift's involved and, like the Eras Tour, like I think maybe the Vikings just get banned from the NFL. And like, I'm the first proponent of that. I don't want to see it, but I just think with their style of play, it's disgusting and it's not family friendly,
Fairness.
Yeah. And yeah.
I do think that probably is not talked about enough. And Jameis Williams. I mean, on a football at a guy on the sideline wishing you happy Thanksgiving.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So,
and like taking drugs and gambling, he's a sinful man, and I think that speaks to a larger culture rot in the team. They're basically old school Raiders, but maybe with cannibalism involved. I don't know. I'm just speaking rumors, not libelous or anything, but I just there's something wrong there. Maybe sex trafficking. I don't know. I don't want to go there. They force my hand a little bit in that category. But it's I like Dan Campbell. Biting kneecaps. He says it. Like that's cannibalism, and that's not okay. This is not October. Spooktober horror month. This is family friendly football.
Yeah, and I will say one thing about the Packer game next week. When we lost to them, that game was bullshit. Rain.
Yep.
Jordan Love was hurt, so I didn't really care. Like that game means nothing to me.
No,
literally nothing. So let's whoop their ass and
make them cry.
Moving on.
Yeah, let's move on.
Moving on. Oh shit. All right. Next up, Thanksgiving Day. Cowboys, Giants.
Do you really like? How much do you care about this?
Probably who even cares about this game? Yeah. What do you tell me? Give me
your so I like Tracy Jr. and that's kind of interesting discussion, right? About like Saquon and everyone's like clowning the Giants, but like, realistically, if you don't have a QB, like the best running back and like a really good safety aren't gonna do much, and like you look at the Raiders, right, where it's like you have Max Crosby, he plays 100% of the snaps. Like he is an absolute freak to play 100% of the snaps and still have that level of, defensive production at a premium position like edge, like safety I think is kind of like running back where it's like undervalued and, it's pretty important, especially when you have a really good guy. It can, change your defense. But like Saquon, like maybe he's a win, but like we saw Saquon and the Giants and they were still in the same position. So you tie the money to that. And if they had Saquon, Tyrone Tracy Jr. wouldn't have had the chance to kind of become a guy, So I think the Giants, like, it looks bad, but, and they cut ties when it financially hurt. They realized, hey, Daniel Jones is not the dude. We could have kept rolling with him the whole season. But, at some point, you got to just cut your bait and, like, start fresh, And I think, to be honest, like, they're given the hand they've been played, like, making like good decisions, and they traded for that Carolina edge guy who's like pretty good. I mean, I don't know how good, I think he might be hurt or something, but I think their process is somewhat sound given, that they put themselves in the situation. But like Neighbors is an elite dude, and like if you get a QB next year, right? Like, you have an awesome, like wide receiver. I mean, really, you got to prioritize offensive line. That's what it comes down to, and that's kind of where their process isn't sound, but. I don't think they're making that bad of decisions given where they're at.
I hear what you're saying. I do think the Saquon thing is way overblown. The Eagles have one of the best offensive line in the league.
Yeah.
And they got Jalen Hurts, who I don't think is like an elite passer, but he's a good player and he battles and he makes plays. And when you add Saquon to Jalen Hurts, you have what they have an MVP. But when you add them with Drew Lock or Daniel Jones, it doesn't matter. And I guess the shocking thing was paying Daniel Jones. I don't know what they ever saw to like.
It's just that Vikings playoff game, right? I mean, that's kind of what it was. Like it kind of balled out. Yeah.
Crazy to me though. Like one thing I don't get about the NFL is why does every quarterback get $45 million? It's like you either get $45 million or you get maybe 10 if you're like
10, 15.
1 year off. Why doesn't like maybe this is controversial, but like Brock Purdy take $25 million, and you could take $20 million and put a good team around him, and $25 million is not a bad life, you know? It's
Because I think like it's like
the
it's
agents.
because we've gotten too much power to the players. Like the little man is hurting big business, you know, and like that's symbolism of America is that like all these poor billionaires, no one cares about them, and like they're getting screwed over by these little men, you know, and it makes me sick, you know. And Purdy, he's worth maybe 20. Well, I guess probably more because we saw in that
He's gonna
Niners
get like
game.
$50 million.
Yeah, but like
Right?
you know, it's like there's always another bidder of the services that will pay him more, and you know, it's gross. It's gross, you know.
I think you
And
just
like,
gotta
thank
look
God
at
we
that.
have the Dodgers that show like, hey, you know, like this is how you know sports teams should be run. That they just get everyone they want, and you know, good for them.
Or like Gutekunst does, you just let a guy walk, you know?
Yeah,
Like if
yeah.
Aaron
Say fuck
Rodgers,
you.
I'm not paying you. Like
Yeah.
we tried to work with you. We're not doing $40 more million. This is bullshit.
Yeah.
You won't even answer my phone calls. See ya. Like I think you gotta sometimes these teams they think they're in this tough situation, like, oh well, if I don't pay Daniel
Mhm.
Jones, what's gonna happen? It's like,
Mhm.
well, paying Daniel Jones isn't the answer. Like that was obvious
No.
to everyone. So I don't. It's it is. It's just
Well,
bizarre.
it's like Simpson. It's also like you know, I think one thing that doesn't get maybe focused on when it comes to contracts is like everyone like kind of talks about it like you exist in a vacuum and you have jobs like it's like Madden mode, right? Where it's like you have job security and it's like what is the optimal thing to do for my team? And it's a lot of these things is like how do I keep my job, right? You know, it's like okay, you know, like I like sure like people are like well poo you know, Daniel Jones, but also realize like, oh, this is the system how it's supposed to be. You know, that's kind of like when you have like the inertia and like all these people where it's like, oh, this is what we're supposed to do. You know, like there's like a saying like no one ever got fired from like buying Intel or whatever, you know, like just something stable. It's like I think for the GMs, like no one ever got fired from giving your QB that won a playoff game like some money, you know, like.
Yeah,
But it's kind of funny, like, yeah. But on the other hand, like you let like a fan favorite grow, and it's like, well, people do get fired from that shit, you know. So,
yeah,
you know,
and it obviously doesn't work out. I don't know. I think it's a little bit of a scared mentality. I do think you're right about guys. I do think too, also just relationships and like things like that.
Yeah.
You cloud these guys and like, well, Danny Jones is a good guy and he shows up and you know whatever. Went to Duke. I'm sure he's like a smart guy, but.
Mm-hmm.
Is he like a leader? I just can't imagine Daniel Jones in the locker room is like someone people really want to play for. And if you don't, your quarterback is not that dude, like you got to be that fucking guy, then you're not getting $45 million a year. I think Purdy.
That's why I think we have to give credit to the Browns that you know they zigged when others zagged, right? You know they gave a serial sexual assault. You know they looked past that and gave him the money. You know, like I mean that takes guts. No, it's but you know, at least they're innovators in that space, you know, like keeping, you know, trying to do something different and like, you know, maybe the locker room needs a little grit, you know, and it didn't work out. Yeah. Allege grit.
Okay.
Yeah.
The Giants. Yeah. I guess to your point though, they're not too strapped for cash, hopefully in the future, and we'll see where they go. They'll be drafting high probably for the next 3 years. The quarterbacks, I don't know. Do you take Shedeur? Do you take Cam?
I don't know. Is Shedeur good? I don't know.
Yeah. So we'll see what they do. But I guess to your point, having the balls to just cut Daniel Jones, like, thank God. Cowboys, obviously Dak got hurt, which is pretty much ended the season. But, like, did it even matter?
Playing that well before. I mean, it's like, I don't know. Like, they kind of got – I think it's kind of with the Niners, too. Like, when people get paid – and like when the contracts go down the wire, I think it says that like teams basically know that they shouldn't do it, but then they get all this media heat and they're like, "Fuck it, we're gonna do it." And we give in, and then it ends up not working out. You know, like CeeDee Lamb got paid and he kind of sucks, right? You know, like he's kind of had a pretty like sure people throw to him, but like you know, there's been like good wide receivers with shitty QBs. You know, like DJ Moore before. Like you know, shit with the Panthers and like Justin Fields, like he balled out. You know, like I think I think this is gonna be a hot take, even though like this is probably wrong, but I'm just gonna roll with it. I think QB or wide receiver receiving stats is a receiver stat. It's not a QB stat. it's a receiver stat. Like you control how many yards you get, even though you don't really, but I think you kind of do.
Like no matter what, who your quarterback is.
Yeah, like Brett Bowers, like fucking Brett Bowers, right?
No, I think there is some truth to that. I mean, if the guys in the NFL are good enough where if you're open and you're on
elite
page and you're willing to like put in the work, you can definitely put up stats for any team in this league. That 100% proven. And like this is a passing league. People are passing the ball 35, 40 times. Like you're going to get 10, 12 targets if you're the guy. And if you
catch them, and then you can do it. Yeah, so I think it's like overrated on the QB. You know, like I think it's like whatever stat that's assigned to you. I think in the NFL, it's like you are in control of that. And if you do poorly and blame others, I think it's just it's like a justification that you suck. Like Simpson.
Or maybe some of these guys, it's like they let a bad game or two like really like compound, and then it's like Dak gets hurt, and then it's Mike McCarthy's not the most exciting guy to play for.
No.
Do you think he's fired? Do you think he's gone?
Yeah, I think so.
I think he's going to get one more year. I don't know why.
No, because his contract ends this year, and I think like Jerry's like kind of big about like
one more year,
like just contract like niceness, where it's like, oh, it ran out, and like like I don't know, for some reason I think that's like important to him, that it's like, oh, like I gave you a contract, I'm gonna honor that, and like it's gonna run out, like. I mean, my thing is, I think Matt McCarthy is going to be the coach of the Bears. Like that just seems so like perfect. Like you get a Packers guy who's won a Super Bowl. Like they totally talk themselves into that 100%.
You can see it just from because Mike McCarthy is we want stability in our program.
Yeah.
And I always think that attitude is fucking hilarious because what is stability? What do you mean
stability?
It goes up every week.
Yeah.
Congrats.
But like I think people like a lot of teams don't care. They just want like ticket sales, right? Like if you go like, I don't know, like 8 and 9 or 8 and 7, whatever it is, 8 and 7, 8 and 9, right? 8 and 9, 17 games. I think like for a lot of teams that's good. Like there's probably like 10 teams that really go for a Super Bowl each year. If that.
You think McCarthy helps sell tickets though?
I think he just like he said, he just produces a boring middle of the road team. And I think like that's fine for the Bears. Like they don't really give a shit, like everyone's all jerking off about 1985. Like that's all they give a shit about, and like a new stadium, and like doing Jesus stuff,
To that point, I see what you're saying. My thought though is like, if you're just worried about selling tickets, I would take a risk on a young guy who has some exciting new offense.
That's risk, but that's risk, Like I don't think they want risk. It's like you pick the number one QB, you do everything consensus, like you sign a middle road free agent coach. Like they don't want risk. They want to have missionary sex in the dark, with their clothes on. That's what the Bears want to do.
I think you're right. About that. It's sad.
It's pathetic. It's pathetic.
Why would you own a franchise and live that way? But yeah, it's the Bears.
There's
really no other way to explain why the Bears are the Bears for this long. It's our entire lives. And we're starting
it makes me sick. Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, they are one of my favorite franchises to watch, I will say.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. And and they give the Bears fans just enough exciting QB things where they can like jerk off about it, like, oh my god, this is gonna be so good.
To give them a little bit of hope.
Yeah, just a little bit, but they don't also know what like QB play looks like. They don't know.
All right, moving on.
Woo!
The Green Bay Packers, Thanksgiving evening,
winningest franchise in the NFL.
We rolled first half, dominated Dolphins. Yep. Like you were saying earlier, too high. Tua threw a shit ton. I think he had like 360, 46.
Yeah, look at that. That's a great line.
Jonnu Smith's playing really, really well.
He's their leader, I think, in receptions. I think, or either Chan. Yeah, I think one of those two, which is kind of crazy.
The Dolphins. What I didn't like about the Dolphins was letting Christian Wilkins walk, and I feel like that killed their team. He went to the Raiders. Van
Ginkel too, man.
Van Ginkel, yep. And their offense is fun. They have a ton of fast players. I don't think they have
Pretty
any problems
boys.
in offense, but their defense is soft. Their own
Yeah.
linebacker called them out after the game. They said the
Yeah.
elements got to them. And I
Yeah.
think that was kind of the story with Miami. Like they're
Mhm.
in Miami. They're having fun. They have a cool coach. He's young, but you got to like gritty football, hard-nosed football.
Mhm.
Miami's not doing it.
No. I think I saw a stat that Mike McDaniels has only won like 3 games against teams over 500.
Damn, that's crazy.
Yep.
Wow. So he
Yep.
just like scored on those shitty teams.
Yep. And like that like, because most of the people in the world are dumb, right? And so it comes to like football, it's like you can go so far, but you could go forever, right? Like just beating up on bad teams, and you look good, and it's like, oh, fluke shit, and everyone forgets about it. You look at your record at the end of the season, like oh, you're 9-6, right? 9-7, 9-8, whatever. Like 17 game really fucks with me. But like, and it's like, and they're kind of like perpetual little brother syndrome, like, and they had that super explosive offense. But like, I think paying Tyreek Hill, like you just like, I think more and more it's like super high pay number 1 wide receivers. I think this year has shown like that doesn't work out. Like, because like all these guys that are making all this money, none of them are really that good. Like their teams, like Tyreek Hill, CeeDee Lamb, who else? Justin Jefferson. Justin Jefferson. Yeah, Ayuk, right? Ayuk. Yeah. Justin Jefferson's kind of an interesting case. I think that's kind of about him because, there's that like, where he shows like he lives in the house by himself. Like I think he looks like a diva, but like he's kind of a grinder. Like I respect him. That I think he really like, because like Naylor, Addison, like there was like maybe the last game or the game before where like Justin Jefferson only got like 1 catch, 2 catches. And, he was not bitching about it, but they still won the game. And I think like, not a lot of basically he's a premium wide receiver that is okay with that, and I think that's how they can win the game.
Yeah. I agree with you. I do like Tyreek Hill, but you're right. $30 million or $20 million.
He's like 31 years old. He's going to fall in a hurry. Yeah.
But how about the Packers, man? J Love. What I love about our team is like we just spread around the ball. Everyone gets opportunities. Grinding. Josh Jacobs, man, like that dude. The way he runs, how physical he runs, and just smacks guys all the time. And I think it plays it like to our other players too, like Tucker Kraft, man. There were a couple he had where he just like smoked some dudes, and it didn't look like it felt good for either of them. But he was like getting up, and he was just loving he just loves like
he's a fucking psycho,
and J Love looks healthy, balling out. His pass to they had the really cool pass to Jaden Reed on the 3rd down, which we didn't get.
Yeah, the one-handed thing. Yeah.
But also that first touchdown was like money. And way underrated, I think.
It reminded me of that Malik Willis touchdown to Jaden Reed. Like I think Jordan Love they're kind of, combining off each other. Do you think like Tucker Kraft has like a cock cage when he plays? Like he likes to hurt himself? Like a chassis cage while he plays? I think he might.
You think so?
Yeah, I think so. Like just like a metal, like I don't know.
What does that do? What exactly?
I don't know. Like I think it prevents you from having an erection. So it's like, like stifling your desires. Yeah. I think he wants to pop a boner, but like, like he likes being edged. I think that's his thing. Just
I don't know. I cannot confirm that, but
speculating here.
Possible. He definitely he's definitely a grinder. He definitely likes contact. He definitely loves the pain. And I think I can't wait. Like this next month in Lambeau is him and Josh Jacobs and Wicks blocking, Jaden Reed, just all the boys. We're just
Wicks ended up leading that game in receptions, which is kind of interesting.
Oh yeah, that's good.
Yeah.
He played much better.
Just drops.
I did want to give a little shout out to Brenton Cox.
Yeah.
Because that dude, undrafted free agent.
From
I don't think he played at all last year, and he just battled. And he's always been a super talented guy, but it's like, can he get it done? And you see him on the field the last couple of weeks. He's making plays, and it's like it's really awesome to see. It's also awesome, just like credit to the Packers organization for like it's not a huge risk, but just being able to take a guy like that, and I don't know, we made it happen. Where other
premium position, right? And like taking the time where it's taking up a roster spot. You know, you say the same thing with like Mosby, you know, like Preston Smith, that wasn't a sign of us selling, you know, that was that's what we talked about earlier, you know, getting the young guys run. And it's kind of interesting. Preston Smith, great, awesome guy, super stable, but like I think what you said is like you need the variance of youth to win in the NFL, and you need to be okay with the lows so you can get the highs. And like now the guys are coming on.
Do you think Preston Smith was the problem with our run defense?
So like they always said that he was that was like one of the things he was great about, you know, but like I think there's something like if you're such a good pass rusher, then the run defense is better, you know, and like if you play with like juice, you know, I think it's hard to run. And I think I think Quay Walker really has made our run defense good. I think that's kind of like what it's been. Like he is firing downhill. And Isaiah McDuffie, you know, holy shit, you know, that guy is tackling like a motherfucker. Like he had like one of the, I don't know what play it was, but he had such a clean tackle where he like wrapped a guy up. I think it was like a third down, and it's just, I mean, the Packers always sucked at tackling, and like now it seems like we're a good tackling team, you know, and a good run defense team, you know, and like special teams is good. Like all these Achilles heels for the Packers have been solved, you know, and it's like, okay, they're paying all these people a lot of money, and there's a reason for that, you know, and it's like now we gotta get fruits of it, you know. I think the Packers are right now the best team in the league.
Clearly, I love Keyshawn Nixon too. I think he's playing really physical, playing tough. It's kind of weird because the whole like kickoff thing is kind of never now, but he's playing well, and we needed to step up big. And for Jair been out, are we the best team in the league right now? So I mean, I don't know. I'm kind of with you because it's like who's the best team? The Chiefs and the Lions. We could easily beat both those. So
Bills maybe. Bills kind of scare me.
Yeah, Josh Allen's scary. He just got engaged. So like
that's true.
Ball's gone.
Yeah.
See how he goes. You know, he's got about.
But he's still edging. I think he's still edging. You know, like you haven't been to the Super Bowl. Like I don't know. I think he's edging so hard.
Did they sign a good wideout recently? Didn't they add a good wideout?
Yeah. Well, they got Amari from.
And he's
Browns,
been. That was a big pickup. I will say. I think you were saying this earlier in the NFL. A lot of teams like do not trade these picks for guys because it is a young man's game, and like you do need bodies and you need. But the Chiefs adding Hopkins and for cheap, and the Bills adding Amari Cooper. Yeah, it's like those are huge playmakers that can make a big difference. And I know Hopkins is a little older, but like
he's been good.
Yeah, he's been great. And why would you expect anything less? And to get him for pretty cheap like that, it's like I don't know. It's kind of weird in the NFL. There's just not a ton of those like add-on guys. Where in baseball you see way more.
Oh yeah, like you get all these utility, you know, relievers, whatever, right?
Yeah, and you just trade them like kind of. I guess there's more to work with, but
I think one thing. So you know, like the NFL, like they do like those player reports, right, about like the organizations and like you know, like your training staff and like your food, and like the Chiefs kind of like super low. I think they do that on purpose to like kind of fuck with them because it's like. You win 3 Super Bowls, and it's like, no, we're still not going to treat you like prima donnas. Like, you're going to give you shitty food, shitty stuff, and like, so it gives you something to like be mad against, and you're still like grinding. You know, I think there's something to be said about like keeping people from being uppity. You know, uppityness is the cancer of the NFL.
Okay, but who is the number one team on that list? Let's look.
The Vikings. The Vikings.
And they're absolute ass. So yeah,
I agree. Yeah, I don't know, but then they like figure the shit out this year. I think it's like you want to be like it's like variance. You want to, and I think that's kind of like maybe your QB thing. It's like a 0 or 60 league where it's like either it's good to be the best, it's good to be the worst. You know, it's not good to be in the middle. Even if it's like shitty, like it's good to be shitty in like in any sport. It is. Like I think the White Sox are going to be a team next year.
Because why?
Because they were so shitty. Because they were so shitty.
No, just the
relative bounce back. I think just like the needle, you know, like everything kind of like you know the pendulum always just goes, you know, and like the farther you go this way, the more you go.
The Lions sucked for like a very long time.
Yeah, and I think they're riding on that. That's what they're riding on.
To me, the Vikings,
it's just hot farts.
Who's your number one fraud team in the NFL right now?
The Lions easily.
Mine's the Vikings.
Yeah.
I mean,
like, Chiefs.
No, Patrick Mahomes is so
I don't
fucking
know.
good.
I mean, do you see that game? How they won? I mean, it's like Jesus Christ. Like that's not the Chiefs. They let Aiden O'Connell march down their throats. You know,
Well, let's
like
just how about this? Let's just go to
all right.
Black Friday NFL Chiefs.
Mm-hmm.
Hold on. Yeah, the end of that game made me want to puke, honestly.
Yeah, Brock Bowers though. What a dude.
Brock Bowers is insane. He's pretty much dominated at every single level, and he's stepped in and is doing the same thing. I love that they drafted him. They got him like what 15th, 14th, like middle of the first round. And he's that perfect like modern day tight end because he can go.
He's like what Kyle Pitts was drafted to be.
Yeah, and I don't know why people weren't like more excited.
Because it's Kyle Pitts. It's Kyle Pitts. That's my thing. Is because Kyle Pitts was this generational TE, and people are like, and then you see what he has been kind of a bust, and like people were so scared and didn't realize like, okay, you know, maybe he wasn't, maybe his bad scheme, you know, I don't know, whatever, right? But like Brock Bowers, ever since he was a freshman, right, for the Dogs, he was generational, and people are like, oh, we've heard this before, you know, like whatever, and like no, he's a generational guy, and he looks weird, right? He's like balding, he's like a weird balding white guy, you know, like if you saw him, you would think he's like a diddler, right? Like with his hair, like you would think there's some sort of sexual crimes he's into. Like you would be cast in Law and Order SVU as like
there's a lot of people losing hair, maybe even on this.
Okay, podcast. You know, like yeah, that sucks, right? You know, maybe you have Law and Order SVU in your future, bro. You know, I don't know if they shoot that in Commie-land, but you know, Law and Order Stalin, Stalin. Okay, whatever.
Yeah.
Here's an interesting stat. Jacoby Myers, ever since the trade of Devontae Adams, is like a top 3 wide receiver in fantasy. Like he has more points than Jamar Chase.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
Also, though, why wasn't Devontae that guy before?
I think he didn't care. He didn't give a shit.
Yeah, I
think he's more of a prima donna than people think. Like he's a prima donna a little bit.
He's a huge prima. He was hurt. He goes to the Jets and he's healthy instantly. And not that it matters, but yeah, no, he's a huge prima donna. He was a prima donna for us. I'm honestly kind of glad with the way the whole situation worked out because he goes to the Raiders. Yeah. And then that situation turned into hell. And then he goes to the Jets now and it's turning into hell. And I guess he's making a lot of money, which is good for him. And he got to play like for 1 year.
The Taco Bell in his house.
Taco Bell in his house. He seems like a great guy. But when it comes to.
Is he a great guy?
He seems like a good family guy. I don't know.
Maybe that's just his PR. I don't know. I think there should be. Maybe he's a piece of shit.
Maybe. Yeah, I don't know. Not much else. I mean, Mahomes
kind of looked all right. He looked all right.
I will say this: was Mahomes 26 of 46? Is that right? Did I do that?
Yeah.
Is Mahomes a system quarterback?
I think every QB is a system QB, unless you do crazy shit. And his crazy shit is like baiting because he knows that the rules protect him. Like I think if Mahomes played in the 90s, he wouldn't be considered a good QB.
I mean, his arm is pretty special talent.
Yeah, but like I don't know, like it's not better. Like it's not like so. His thing is like he contorts, right? And he always does the thing where he like holds back, rushes the line, and he's like, so then he pulls a defender to get towards him. The guy gets open and he dinks and dunks it, right? Cool, that's great that you do that in modern NFL. But like if you do it back in the day, you get fucking slammed, and like he would have more fucking concussions than Tua, and he would be like, and you could tell that like you know his wife is kind of crazy that he's already kind of whatever. So it's like if he had like 5 big hits, the dude would be like Alex Jones, you know, flat earther, you know, frogs turning gay. Like I think he ends up in the right wing, you know, manosphere talking about flat earth if he was in the 90s. Like I think he'd be like Rush Limbaugh. He would be right there with Rush Limbaugh.
I did think that when he did the fake run out of bounds thing.
He does it every time, yeah.
I hate that shit. That is,
and he does it, yeah, and like that's his thing, right? Yeah.
And I think guys like Caleb Williams got nailed.
Yeah, and he was clean. That was clean.
So yeah, no complaining about that. And I think someone honestly, you got to just smack Mahomes like when he's near. And if you get a 15-yard penalty, fucking
whatever. Make him. You know, like I think that's how you win the game is just just fucking kill him.
Smack him in the mouth. That's how you always beat a good quarterback. You gotta smack him in the mouth.
Yeah.
That's the way it is. All right. Moving on.
Okay.
Debates. Here we go. Which of the big four is it easiest to win a championship in? Give me it, Sam.
I think NBA. It has to be NBA because you only need basically like one guy, right? You just need like one or two guys, and like the roster is so small, and especially like load management and whatever. Like the Celtics were great last year, but they had a cupcake run, and like I think in the NBA where it's just weird that like. So NFL, there's so many injuries, and like NHL, I don't really know about, and I don't think anyone cares. But like, we can just put it out there. Yeah, and like MLB, there's pitchers get injured all the time. But like the NBA, it's like okay, you lose Giannis, you lose like a big dude, like then it's just like it's like a predetermined outcome almost. It's like who can be healthiest versus like the other sports, like one they have the roster, so it's like one person is not as impactful, on a game. And it's like I think they're just more used to it, right? And I think like now the NBA, because they're all soft and they play like all AAU stuff and like travel ball, and they're all like friendly, and so they have like a ton of miles on their legs, but also like they're not like getting battered anymore, so they don't have to be like play against like the Pistons team, right? That are like would fucking kill them. And it's like okay, if you bitch about fouls and you're like soccer, like I don't know, it's just like. Who's the best ballerina that's wins it? I don't know. Like I just feel like the NBA is just a joke, and it's like all for like flips and shit. Like it's not like at this point. Could you call the National Basketball Association? Could you call it a sport? I don't think so. I think you call it more of theater, a drama. Like I think fucking video games are more of a sport than the NBA is.
There's some drama in there. Maybe this is a hot take, but I was thinking it through, and. I think that and I know this is crazy maybe, but I think baseball is the easiest to win a championship in. And why I say that is a couple of reasons. No, if you have money, I think you can almost buy a championship. The Dodgers did last year in a sense. The Yankees did for a long time. They tried and they failed a bunch too, but you can kind of buy some really, really good players, and you can kind of like buy enough depth to overcome injuries. Two, the MLB, you get towards the trade deadline, you can actually like fill in pieces like, oh shit, we need a reliever. I need a utility guy. I need an outfielder. I need a backup catcher. You can just like actually add to your team where all these other leagues, they just, maybe you get like one guy, maybe you get one guy here. I don't know. And then the other thing I think about the MLB is like, when you get in the playoffs, it just seems like anything could happen. And it's just like, there's no really rhyme or reason. Sometimes like the Diamondbacks were battling the Braves when they won it all. All these teams, they just get hot and they can beat anyone. So I feel it's so frustrating to me because my entire life, the Brewers have not won a championship, but I do think it's, I think MLB might be the easiest to win. Why I say NBA is not is because I think it's hard to I think you got to have a super team. So you got to have your three dudes. Yeah. And unless you're like Boston or LA or Miami or somewhere fun, people don't want to wants to go to the Bucks really, right? And that's we got lucky that we drafted Giannis. Like honestly, that's really cool. And we traded for Middleton when he was a 67 overall in 2K, and those guys went on to become max players. Like I don't think that really happens realistically.
Development really doesn't happen in the NBA. It's like you're either like start as like a superstar or you're like wash. Like I mean, people give up on like fucking 20-year-olds. Like it blows my mind. It's like porn. It's like porn with your like what your career is gonna be. You either like break out at 18 or you're done by 20 and you become a MILF.
It's weird. It's weird. It is weird. Like there's so many guys that are 25 years old. I'm like, this guy could still be a pretty good player, and they just are like, walk.
No, you're done.
But then they end up going to like, I think like Gary Trent's a good example of that. He comes out of Duke after 1 year. He's 6'5", he's a good shooter. He's super athletic, kind of figuring his way. He's only 25 years old now, and he's as a contributor on a contending team. So hopefully he'll get it done. I think the NFL, why you have to have a superstar quarterback.
Yeah.
Right? You just have to have like maybe Nick Foles was the only quarterback recently that wasn't a superstar, but besides that,
Well, but I think like because Mahomes has won so much, like I guess if
Brady.
like, and this is kind of like, okay, yeah, he's superstar, so he wins. But like, I think that's so it's like Mahomes doesn't exist, then it's like, I guess so if the Lions win this year, like, okay, like is Jared Goff a superstar? I mean, he's a legit MVP candidate this year, though. So it's like, is he a superstar? I don't know. Like, he just seems like the best possible, like, kind of like Joe Flacco. It's like Joe Flacco playing the best possible way you can play. And like Joe Flacco won a Super Bowl like that, right?
Yeah,
So,
yeah.
like I don't know. I think we're seeing the pendulum swing where it's like running seems to be so more important because like the linebackers were geared towards, being lighter and like the safeties, to like cover receivers and tight ends or whatever, right? So it's like, I don't know, if you can ground pound it, maybe you can this year. I don't know.
Maybe my take is you don't need a superstar, but if your starting quarterback going into the year gets hurt, your season's over.
Yeah. That's
and
fair.
I guess the Eagles kind of disproved that with Nick Foles. He played incredibly well during that run. That was nuts. But besides that, like all these teams, their quarterback gets hurt, and it's like, see ya next year. It's nuts.
Yeah. Well, it's kind of nice that like QBs don't really get hurt like for the whole season. Like there hasn't been a single QB out for the season this year, and that seems
Dak.
What?
Isn't
Dak. Okay, Dak. Yeah, but yeah, you're right. But like QBs that matter, I guess. Like this kind of like I think the NFL for whatever it's worth, like they've done a pretty good job of like, QBs like for all the injuries that happen, like QBs are kind of fine.
No, it's annoying like when you see those stupid penalties like a hit on the helmet or something like that. But as a pure like entertainment, like we don't want to watch Aiden O'Connell and
no one wants to see that.
Drew Lock versus Cooper Rush. Like that's not like they're protecting their product, and it makes sense. It makes it better for all of us. Is it annoying at times for sure, but
it's what we want. They give us what we want, even but we will bitch about it because we're little sheep.
Yep. All right. Baseball and NBA.
Yep. All right.
Here we go. What would cause you to ditch your favorite team?
So, like I think it depends on like who you are as a person. So like if you're a person that would like divorce your spouse over like they voted for a different party, I think then you're the type of person that is like shown that it's like, all right, you don't really like you're not a loyal person, like so it's like if you're the type of person that would do that, then it's like I think you would ditch your team over pretty much anything, and like for me, like it's like I don't think there's anything that it would be like I would probably start cheering for other teams, but like that would still be my bottom bitches, and I wouldn't give up on them. Like I think it's like you either have that in you, like I don't think it's like a team focused thing, because like there's still like diehard Browns fans, and like we're saying like, oh, like all these people lied or whatever, right? And it's like, that's kind of like that shows like ride or die mentality, like especially if you're a woman and you're like, now these girls lied, like I'm backing up my team. Like I mean that should be commemorated. Like we should appreciate those fans because they were put in a hard position. I think those fans had it harder than the masseuses being sexually assaulted. Like, I don't know. I think that's harder to do, and especially as like a Browns fan. Like that's a difficult position to be in. But like maybe people also just like being hurt. I don't know.
Do you think that watching the Browns for like 30 years is probably worse?
It absolutely is. 100%. It's worse. And like if you're especially like die hard into it, that's 100% worse.
Yeah. I mean, it's like the worst time of the year too. So like, it's cold outside, it's dark, it's depressing, and
your city sucks.
You just want like 3 hours to escape your shitty life. And what do you do? So this is kind of a fun question for me because hypothetically speaking, if I was a fan of a team and they like sent a guy up into a scissor lift on a really windy day and murdered him, like would that cause me to switch teams? No. So
no.
Maybe it's a loyalty thing. Maybe it's a time heals all wounds things. Maybe it's easier just to blame like an individual within an organization than the whole team. But I can't imagine switching teams. I've invested too much into anyone.
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't know why. And I think you do got to appreciate the lows. Not
Yeah, to
appreciate.
appreciate the highs. Yeah.
Lows. Appreciate the highs.
And I mean, and it's also like victim blaming, like I think if you can just get yourself to blame victims, I think it becomes a lot easier journey, right? Like the scissor lift guy, like you should have known better, right? Like if you blame the people that are bad actors and like say, it's conspiracy field, it just makes it a lot better, right? The refs are in on it. Taylor Swift is like MK Ultra, Mind Plant, Dan Campbell is secretly a cannibal, rapist, like that just, it makes everything better because you put these narratives out there, which probably some of them are true. Let's call a spade. Some of these things are true. And then you have something to like fight against. It's like, oh no, my team's better, right? And I think, I don't know. I think it's like, it becomes like a personal brand and ethos. It's like, if you are a type of person, it's like, I'm always going to show up on time, like what would cause you to not show up on time? It's like, I think that's just a core value of who you are. And if you like, and it's like to change that means like, it's kind of like the ship of Theseus, right? Where it's like, okay, you're the ship you built. And if you start keeping replacing stuff, like at what point do you become a new ship or are you still the same ship? Actually, that's not really related at all, but like I kind of want to just put that out there because it seemed like that would be a very smart comment. And then just
do you know anyone that's actually like ditched their favorite team?
No, I don't.
There's only one guy who's pretty much ditched the Bears, I would say.
Yeah.
And it's pretty pathetic.
Well, but he's like a pathetic person, for that, and I think he's like a simp, and I think like he knows
like
that.
I wouldn't want to work with someone. I couldn't trust them. I wouldn't want to it's a lifestyle. But yeah, I'm sure there are people out there that it would probably be easier just to ditch the sport altogether than to ditch my teams,
Yeah, I think it's like you have to. It's either you can't throw you'd have to throw the baby out with the bathwater.
Okay. So say since we are so loyal, what is and I guess we don't even have what's the worst crime your favorite player could commit and you would still be a fan?
I think I could rationalize anything at this point. To be honest. Like they were like part of like Al Qaeda, like 9/11. Like I don't know. All right.
That'd be a little dark.
I mean, but like we joke about 9/11 now. It's like been 23 years. It's like fine now.
Yeah, I would just be more disappointed that they were like spending their time doing terrorism and not like getting better. I feel like that.
I'd be like, well, they didn't get the job done with the Pentagon. Like finish the play.
Yeah. And I mean, it's kind of a funny question because I think we do have a pretty good example of this in real life with Tiger Woods. In a weird way, I think sexual assault is almost worse than like murder. I don't know why, but
yeah, it kind of is. It is. Yeah.
If someone was like a rapist, it'd be way worse than someone murdering someone. I don't know why.
Yeah, because I think like rape is just it's like icky, and it's like I think for all the equality we are in our society, I think it's a good thing that we still realize that it's kind of like a woman coded, like women are the victims there. And like, I think if you ask women, they would much rather be murdered than raped, but as a guy, I think I'd rather be raped than murdered, but I think it's like, we still like, I mean, would you rather be murdered or raped? Like, I'd rather be raped.
Yeah. I guess at the end of the day, at least
like you're still alive, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. But like women would rather be murdered than raped.
Possibly. We'll have to ask some people in our lives and come back for our next episode to see if it's true.
But I think morality is centered on women because like woman is like being like moral is almost like a female trait, and it's in a good way. Like I think like guys are savages, like like the law of the jungle would just kill, eat each other, or whatever, and like women are kind of like that, like humane force, right? Like make us actually human. Like hot take, like I think women are the reason why humans are human.
All right, this is my take on this. I don't think the crimes really matter. I think it matters if you're good or not. I think if you win and you're the best athlete at your sport, people will forgive literally anything. When Tiger Woods came back and he was number one in the world, Nike ran the winning takes care of everything.
That's so true.
World number one. And
you think any chance Nike would do that ad today, like at all?
No way they would do that today.
No.
That was 2009, I think, 2008.
Yeah.
It was
Yeah.
one of the most
Thanksgiving, right?
hits when it came out.
Yeah.
No way would they do that. But I think we kind of proved it in our society that people will stick with really, really good athletes and look the other way.
I mean, I think if you're good enough, you can, like, instead of a murder, it'd be like that person suicide themselves. You know, taking point, Hillary Clinton, she's never had a single body on her and all these suicides around her, you know, because she's so good at her craft.
She is damn good.
Yeah. You know, her and Nancy Pelosi.
All right. Moving on.
Moving on.
There it is.
Oh, yeah. There you go. Nice. Nice.
The old
tie that
scissor
up.
lift, the hypothetical scissor lift. And
How many types of lifts are there? Like, is it just scissor and like crane? You know, like, I guess
they built.
like, I think do you need like a forklift, like a crane license, like the same like esteem as a forklift license, or is it just kind of anyone can kind of get up in there?
They built permanent structures after this one, which was probably smart. I think anyone can go in it. I'm guessing there's someone operating.
To operate, yeah.
No idea, but yeah,
Okay.
that ad is. I think that ad speaks. That's like a cultural ad right there. Like that ad should be studied in college, honestly.
Yeah.
There's all those
because of woke
and stuff, but they should tell them like, "Hey guys, this is reality."
Yeah.
Fair or foul?
You see, I changed it to foul.
Nice. I did see it. All right, cheering for multiple teams in the same league. Fair or foul?
So, all right. So, like, I'm gonna totally go up on this. I think in professional sports, no. You know, like, I think it's like that. But I think like college, because it's like so it's like I didn't go to like a big school, so it's like then it's like I get to pick and choose. And like, you know, college is like kind of like whatever. Like if you go to a big college that's good at sports, I think you can't unless you like went to a grad school there, you know, or like your kid goes there, your wife, you know, like you have personal connections.
Tuition, you can be a fan.
Yeah, exactly. And I think you've earned that. Like if you paid tuition, yeah, exactly. I think it's a good right way to put it. Paid tuition, you can be a fan. I think for NFL, like you just, or like, you know, any big sports teams, unless you're like, you know, move to a different location and it like, you know, I don't know, like it's just like you can't get on TV or something. Like, you know, if you're prevented from being a fan, you know, like it's like I could kind of agree with it, you know, but like I think at the end of the day, like you have 100% fandom, and every team you start following, right, takes part of that 100%. So it's like you'll never be the best fan because it's like you're like diverting your attention, and so it's like at some point, right, like it has to be at least 50-50, you know, like you have to have or 51% share to like consider yourself like an actual fan, like, and it's like or an acquaintance of it, you know, like so it's kind of like you can do it, but like you're kind of like giving up part of yourself to do it.
Yeah, no, I think that's a great way of looking at it. It's if you have another team, it's like you're cheating. You can't give 100%.
Yeah.
So it's
like you have like what is it? You're like polyamorous, right? Like, you know, like you're a Mormon with multiple wives.
Doesn't
like
work
you can
out.
do it, but like, you know, it's illegal in a lot of places, and you know, like, you
should be
I don't know.
in jail.
Yeah. But, you know, like also kind of commend it because that sounds exhausting to like handle that many women and like hear about like that many stuff. Like that's ridiculous. So maybe multiple fans should, like, if they're really on the up and up with all their teams, like maybe we should think of it as like, wow, you know, like, and think back in the day, right? Like people that had multiple families, like how could you do that shit? You know, like you have 2 Christmases, you have to remember, you know, but I guess like that's maybe why dads weren't involved, you know?
Yeah.
But like, because it's like there wasn't as much required of you, so you could have multiple families and you were like seen as like a good father if you just like basically just didn't beat your wife and like showed up, and like had some food on the table. You know, I guess it's like we've raised the bar a lot, and I think men should be appreciated for that. Like, you know, men have really stepped up. Like women have always just done that shit, and like, you know, kudos to you, but like you've always done that. You know, guys, no, we like in a couple generations we've really gone from like you used to, you know, be able to like slap secretaries' asses, get drunk on the job, and like you were a good dad, you know, you were fine, you know, and like now we can't do that anymore, and like we don't, and that's fine, that's right, you know, but like, you know, that's hard transformation, you know, like, you know, I don't know.
A quick
I think men should get more credit for basically being decent people.
Yes. Can you have I don't think it's possible to have multiple teams. The one thing I would say though is I think you can cheer for a party. So say your friends you're friends with a bunch of people that went to a school differently than you. Your team isn't, say your team's not in the Final Four and you're friends with the Cowboys and they're in the Final Four. I always enjoyed like the atmosphere.
It's a bandwagon, right? Like I think bandwagon became like a pejorative, but like think of it, it's like a wagon of like people all having fun. It's like a party float, right? And like fuck it, that's fun. Like join the party float. There's nothing wrong with being a bandwagon. That's having fun.
Party. Yeah.
Join the bandwagon. But I think it's just you have to own it. Like just own it. Like that's what you're doing. But like that's fine.
So a bandwagon fan to you is someone who just like kind of enjoys
just good vibes
around the event, but
and good vibes. Yeah.
I think that's a good way of putting it because a lot of times it's not seen that way. It's like you're the guy who like shows up with the brand new jersey, right?
Yeah,
Bandwagon fan isn't buying a jersey.
No, he's bringing dip. He's bringing appetizers. Bring a six pack. That's what a true bandwagon guy is. Yeah,
he's bringing Fireball and he's making sure everyone's
exactly. And being like, oh, do you like saying like super basic stats? Like, oh, I heard this QB is doing great. It's like it'd be like, oh, I heard Mahomes is a good QB. It's like, yeah, no shit, bro. But like, hey, you brought a six pack. Fine. Cool. Glad to have you aboard, brother.
Or he loves a player that got hurt like 3 weeks ago.
Yeah. It's like, oh man, yeah, dude, yeah, sure, yeah. All right.
Yeah. Cheerleading for multiple teams. It's acceptable if you're doing it for fun. Not acceptable if you're cheating on your wife.
Yeah. Well, but if she knows about it, I don't know, whatever.
Okay.
Different times.
Here we go. Speaking of, how about women step up to their part? Could a woman head coach work in the Big Four leagues? Rank best to worst.
Yeah. Well, I think let's dive into it.
All right. I'll start. Here's my rankings. MLB, number 1. Number 2, NBA. Number 3, NFL. Who knows about the NHL? But
yeah, who cares?
Why I say MLB number 1 was because I think managers in the MLB are
kind of like generals
by stat. Like they're just reading stats. They're reading, shift a little bit this way. I don't think there's actually like a ton of. I think you got to have kind of like some respect of the locker room, but there's women nowadays. I think we have a hitting coach on our bench. I think MLB, it makes sense. Like you just have to have someone who's smart, innovative, up with the stats, on top of the shit. And I don't think like MLB managers are like giving great speeches. Like it's not a physical game. You know what I mean? So I think MLB is number 1. Number 2, NBA, just because. I don't know why. I just feel like the NBA just like pretends to like be acceptable with it. I don't actually really believe that the NBA, but they just kind of like they're too afraid they'd be too afraid to say no, right?
Yeah, I agree.
Like they're not. I think there was one coach on the Spurs.
Becky Hammond, right? Becky Hammond, yeah.
Yeah, and now she's coaching the WNBA. I'm sure she's fine, but
I think she also like owns part of the team too. So I think that's how they got
nice.
It. Like
that's a great way to do it too.
Yeah.
NFL, I don't think it would work out because you need to like beat the shit out of your other team, and it's like it's a man. It's just like a different world. And it's like some dudes that also like NFL dudes are they're like they cause some trouble and they're going out and they're partying and they get in trouble all the time, and like it's a lot more to deal with than just like stats and play calling, and it's like this whole grittiness. You need to like, in a funny way, I was thinking about it, like Dan Campbell is like, he's kind of like super macho. He's kind of like the face of super macho. And then Matt LaFleur is a little bit more of a
like metrosexual.
He's a little bit more of a feminine coach. And he's great.
But
he's probably like he commands respect in a little bit of a different way.
Mm-hmm.
And he's just grinded his way up a lot, but I just don't really see it working in the NFL. Those 53 dudes, it's hard to like gain that many people's respect. And then NHL, similar to the NFL, I would say, just that macho-ness, like toughness. How How about you? Did you put one up there?
Yeah, I did. Yeah.
Okay.
All right. So NBA, I agree with you. Like, I think it's like, I don't know. It's just kind of like a feminine, like league. Like, it's like a woke, progressive, like wrapping of the league, you know? And I think it's like, okay, you could have, you know, like I think that LSU coach, you know, could do it, right? Where it's like you look, or like a Brittany Grinder, where it's like basically you are like a man, but you are an actually woman, you know? Like, if you listen to her talk, like, it is crazy how like her voice is deeper than mine. Like, she's like a baritone, you know? And like, you put her on the sidelines, like, I think eventually people will be like, you know, like, I'm working under a man, even though, you know, she's like a woman, you know? And like, she spent time in the gulags, you know? So she kind of knows grit, you know? And like, she smokes weed. You know, NBA players seem like they love to smoke weed, you know? Like, I don't know. I feel like you just got to get like a black, like, or Lori Lightfoot, you know? I think Lori Lightfoot could be a coach of the NBA, you know? Like, she's like, I have the biggest dick, you know? She's worked with like, you know, the police and like the firefighter, like, she's managed that and like said like, fuck you, I got a bigger dick than you do. Like, I think Lori Lightfoot could be a good coach of the NBA, you know? Because it's kind of like, you like have the weird pantsuits, you know? I think that's just kind of like, that fits into that culture, you know? Like, I think the culture might come back where it's like, I don't know, there's like that famous picture of like that draft day where everyone was wearing like those big suits, you know, with like the arm pads and shit. Like, and that's Lori Lightfoot. Like, I think she's on the forefront of fashion there. And so it's like, you know, like, oh, you know, dunk, you know, shoot a ball. Like, I mean, call plays. I don't know. Like, I think the NBA is just a joke, and it's, you know, whatever, you know, like, get yourself a black lesbian and I think you could win, you know? And like, Doc Rivers is just kind of like a black lesbian, you know, in its own way. You know, like, and so I don't know. I think that's why I said the NHL, because here's kind of a hot take. Like, a bearded lady, you know, like, you bring like an old school bearded lady from a circus, like a Russian bearded lady. Like, yeah. I think they'd be like, you know, like, beards matter, and like, she grows that. I think it'd be like, you know, like Tristiana Ivankovich, and, you know, like, missing a couple teeth, you know, like, I think like a Soviet era communist woman, you know, like, that grew up like fucking working with a babusha on the fucking with Kolix and Kopix on the farm, you know. I think that could play, you know, like, they're good skaters. Like, it would just be a Russian, like a hard ass Russian woman, I think, could like totally do it, gets respect, you know. Like, I respect like an old babushka. Like, I wouldn't fuck with an old Russian woman, you know. And I think like, you know, I think that could totally work. That could totally play. Okay. MLB. Yeah, I thought like similar. Like, I think like so I think like for GMs, like, I think women actually probably are better than men in this position. Like, I think they're like more like analytical and like patient, you know, not like given it like, you know, like, fuck you trade deals. Like, I think more like, okay, no, I'm not gonna like just get mad and like, you know, just make a rash decision. Like, I'm gonna go through the motions, be patient, you know, like, have a good organization, you know, like, especially like with the farm, you know, like, managing all those players, like, you know, like, fucking like, those guys are treated terribly. Like, if you had like a woman, you know, like, it's like, oh, you know, like, make sure they get orange slices in between innings, you know. Like, I think fucking batting average go up like 10 points. Like, they're just like, give it, like, if like they're shitty like dorms that they're living in, you know, if they were like, oh, I'm gonna make this like homey, and they have throw pillows and candles, you know, like, and just like, it's nice, you know, it'd be like, oh my God, my life doesn't suck, you know, like, I'm gonna be good. And then you develop these players, you get superstar studs, you know, you draft well, develop well, you know, like, and like, girls probably have a better eye test, like, their vision's better, you know, so like, can ascertain tools and stuff, and like, they're a little bit removed where it's not like, oh, you know, like, this has to work like this, you know, type of thing, where it's like, you know, like, you can be more objective on it. Like, I think like scouting still is run by like the old dudes that are like, oh, you know, you gotta, you know, choose feed this way. Like, yeah, right. You know, like, it's like fundamentals are good, but like, also like, I don't know, I think like MLB is really like, it's on data, and like, you know, like, I think like you could just, there's a lot like untapped stuff that it feels like we're just like locked into. And I agree with you. It's like, you like, one, like, imagine like you're a woman coach and like Harrison Butker and being like, hey, I need you to do better. It's like, no, go back in the kitchen. You know, like, that's just not, it's just not going to fly in the NFL. And like, you know, oh, are you going to like play through a concussion? You know, like, I don't give a fuck about your health, you know, like, you know, put steroids, trazodone into it, you know, like, I mean, like, it is the most masculine sport there is. It's like gladiators, and like, that's the area where I think it's just be like, like it's a boys club, and it probably will always be a boys club, and I think that's okay.
Yeah, boys got other space. I would love to do a deep dive into like, why don't MLB? Why do they treat the farms so bad? It's like, you're right. Like, it's one thing to pay guys, but like, why not just make the life a little bit easier?
Yeah,
I don't know. It's a weird one.
Yeah, I think money is probably the thing.
Yeah, I'm not saying like paying like millions of dollars or invest a ton, but
yeah,
like, I don't know.
I think it's because it's like they flame out, almost. I don't know. It's like, yeah, but I agree, But it's like, and then you have like these Cuban guys, like the Cuban academies are like pretty nice, like for, well, Cuba, like I guess like like all the South America stuff, like facilities, and they're like kind of badass, So it's like,
isn't that hilarious though? Like, are we in Venezuela, the Brewers?
Yeah, we're Venezuela, and like our facility is so nice there.
So nice, and then they probably join our club team,
and they're like, "What is this shit?" Like, I want to go back to like a dictator controlled country. Yeah, go back to Cuba. My standard of life was better in Cuba than it was in rookie A ball.
All right, yeah. So I think we were pretty similar.
Yeah,
NBA is probably number one. NBA, and I said MLB. I don't know.
Yeah.
Moving on. Redoing the NFL draft of quarterbacks. Now up here, I just threw every quarterback drafted this year. There was only 11 of them. The round, the pick overall, and then which team drafted them. The only guy that's not on the current team is Michael Pratt, who we drafted. He's actually
like the practice squad, right? Yeah.
Yep. But all right, what do you think?
I take Spencer Rattler at number one. I think so. There's a thing called like nominative determinism, where it's like what your name is like how you'll be the rest of your life, And I think just Rattler is just such a cool quarterback name. Like, you got rattled, like that's like perfect. And I know nothing about him. Like, I have him on my dynasty league. That's probably why, because I really want him to be good. But realistically, like, so I think like Joe Milton, like he played a little bit, and like his arm is like, he's kind of like Anthony Richardson. Yeah. Like, I think there's a good chance that Joe Milton ends up becoming like the best QB in this class, because he's getting time to develop. And like, if you have that good of an arm, like, I think there's a viable NFL offense where all you do is just throw bombs, because pass interference seems like it's called like 40% of the time, and catches it maybe like 20% of the time. Like a true like Hail Mary offense, like they'll call holding, so you don't need a good offensive line. Like, they can hold for all day, every day, and it's fine. So it's like you can get away with just and like, I saw, this was a couple of years ago, but like trick plays have the highest EPA of any play type in the NFL. And so if you just do a trick play bomb offense, I think that could be successful, and that could totally win, because you just connect on a couple of those, and like NFL's right about all limiting explosive plays. And if your offense is just designed around that, no one knows how to play you. No one knows how to play you. And like you just like basically break the system, and you could probably only do it for a year, but I think you win the Super Bowl that year.
What if they just were blitzing you?
Yeah, but I think that's why you have like the Anthony Richardson type, which is like you're so agile and like whatever, and like like you still have the protection of the QB, right? So it's like basically anyone hits you a little hard, like you get 15 yards, roughing the QB. So I think it's like you lean into the penalties, like basically make them give rushing passer or pass interference, and that's what your offense is built around.
Okay. Interesting. So you think Joe Milton is the future best quarterback?
I mean, I think future, if you do that specific offense, if someone had the balls to do it, yeah. But like how the NFL is currently played, I think. Yeah. I mean, so Bo Nix, I think, is like, because he's older, he's like reached the ceiling the quickest, and like he'll kind of plateau. Like, he's the best right now, but like in the future, like I don't think he's the best developing. Like Drake May looks pretty good, and especially like the Pats offensive line is like by far the worst in the league. He has like basically the Packers wide receivers, but like shittier. He doesn't have much to work with, but he still looks kind of good, you know. So I would think if I was starting my franchise now, I think I would pick Drake May, Caleb, and then probably like JJ McCarthy, Penix. I think Jordan Travis because like
You're way down on Jaden Daniels.
Yeah, I don't think I think he's like a flash in the pan. I don't know. Like he looks so good, but he's kind of been shitty, and I think like that's kind of cliff where like it started off really good and like it's gonna peter out, and then I think he's gonna be like Russ, like fucking RG3. I know it was like more injury, but like you start out really good and then you don't look good. Like I don't know. I don't think he's gonna like pan out. Like I think it's like he already did all that shit and like. You know, like his ribs, like I think, like because like you see the cutoffs of LSU, right, where you just got nailed over and over and over, and like you can make that in college, but like when you have like NFL dudes hit you, like that's a different hit, you know, and like he's not a big guy, like he's kind of like what, maybe like 200, 205, like I don't know, he's already had injuries. Like I think just injuries are gonna make him, you know, like not be able to withstand the NFL. But I think Jordan Travis is a dude because just how bad FSU is this year. Like he, you know, I think he's a guy. He was
an interesting guy to watch. I got kind of like an interesting take on this because the Bears were the first team drafted.
Yep.
I don't think it matters. Like no matter who gets drafted to Chicago, they will suck. There's just no hope. So, but if I just had to say like who are the best quarterbacks, I still think Caleb Williams is the best quarterback. I think he's pretty much has every talent except processing.
The sacks really concern me.
It's the diva thing is concerning. I think it's like more of a mental thing for him, and hopefully with a new coach or whatever direction they go, they can like figure something out. I still like Jaden Daniels a lot. He's 6'5". He's fast as hell. He was
6'5".
What really impressed me at the start of this year was like how accurate he was. It was like crazy.
Yeah.
He was throwing like almost 100% for the first 5 games. Drake May has balled out recently. I probably would take Nix over May.
Really?
Nix 3, May 4th. Yeah, I do think that I like Nix a lot because he's like that son of a coach. So he's just like got that smartness to him. I don't know, like 24 years of that, I think it's just hard to teach that even in like a couple of years.
And he's like a really good scrambler. I think that's kind of underrated. Like I didn't expect that from him.
He's one of the best.
His legs. Yeah.
Statistically, I think he's like top 5 quarterback all time in college football.
Yeah.
And it's tough with like Penix and McCarthy. I would take Penix over McCarthy like they did.
Mm-hmm.
Rattler, to be honest, Rattler's a little bitch. He's short. He's always been a bitch. He went to Oklahoma. He sucked. He went to, I think Caleb Williams actually passed him. He went to South Carolina and average. He's like super cocky, and he just doesn't back it up. And I don't know. I think he's small too. I think he'll flare out in the next couple of years, and we'll never hear about him again. Jordan Travis, unfortunately, is size-wise similar, small. I do like Joe Milton. I do like your pick of Joe Milton just because he's got a gun, and if he just gets a couple of years, who knows what can happen. I think he will get a shot someday to start, and if he can take advantage of his opportunity and he's doing the right things, I think Joe Milton could be a dude. I mean, you just can't teach that arm strength, and and then Leary and Pratt will.
What school did Leary go to?
Kentucky.
UK State or Kentucky? Okay.
Yeah, I mean, best case they try to hang around the league.
He's like a Willis type of guy, or not Willis? Who's the Tennessee QB? Titans QB.
Oh, Levis.
Yeah, seems kind of like a Levis. That's the vibes I'm getting.
I don't know. It's bizarre.
You actually know heights and weights. Like I don't know any of this. Like it just sounds like a milky white QB. That's kind of weird.
Yeah, no, he is. It's funny how Levis got like PR'd into the second round.
Yeah,
pretty much.
He's kind of been good though recently. Like he's kind of been good.
Better. He's been learning his mistakes.
I don't know. I don't know, man. Like that, but I don't know. Beat the Texans.
Yeah, that was
Are the Texans good? Are the Texans good?
The Texans are. underperforming big time right now.
Yeah, like
it's a Stephon
I think it's
Diggs
on
effect.
Stroud. I think it's on Stroud. I don't think he's good.
He was so overhyped. I will say that.
Yeah.
He got way too overhyped, and everyone was loving him, and they were like dissing Jordan Love, and Jordan Love's way better than him.
No, 100%. That's why it like pisses me off. Like he is so much better. Yeah.
I like that he was getting all the attention though, because like I want to be under the radar. I don't want to have the hype. I want everyone can like go praise Chris Stroud, and we'll see who's holding the Super Bowl championship at the end of the season.
Hot take. I think by end of their careers, Bryce Young is going to be a better QB than CJ Stroud.
Okay. I like it.
I mean, like you see that like in that Kansas City game, like dude, he made some dimes. Like he looked good.
My hot take is Michael Penix will have the best career out of this
group.
I think Caleb Williams. He might be. He's probably my best quarterback, but he's in Chicago.
He's just on the Bears. Yeah.
And so I think Penix. And not that I like Atlanta, but I just feel like Penix. He's lefty too, which is confusing for people.
Yeah.
Like right now, is he actually that good? But he's lefty, so it makes it a little harder, and it's just like confusing. The ball spins the other way.
Mm-hmm.
So Penix, we'll come back and visit this in like 15 years. All right, you ready?
With the ball spin the other way. Like I didn't think about that, but that's like that could fuck up receivers. Yeah.
Our last topic of the day.
Yeah.
The gunslinger. This was your take. The gunslinger mentality seems more prevalent for NFL quarterbacks. Is that due to the rise in ADHD, the TikTok generation? So I threw a picture of Adderall, TikTok, and the OG gunslinger himself, Brett Favre.
So I think there's like a confluence of factors, right? You know, I think it starts from Andrew Luck, Drew Brees, right? And like Russell Wilson last year are like, and also like Justin Herbert. So Justin Herbert, I think, is a good example, like a perfect example of this. So Justin Herbert last year was basically, you got to play like Drew Brees. You got to play like a robot. You got to like do all like just basically, you know, be clinical, follow exactly what's called, boring offense, you know, whatever. And like that shit like is on like in the rise of like the MBAs and like analytics. And you could say like, I think like Kamala's campaign or like Hillary Clinton's campaign, where it's like you have all these focus groups that tell you like this is what you do because like statistically this makes sense and like you should do this. And I think like baseball's kind of also involved in this too, where it's like, oh, you know, this play, this ad by this group, this thing has, you know, like a 2% chance of, you know, becoming whatever, you know, and it's like great, you know, so it's like you do that, but it's like then you like there's opportunity costs in that, and it's like with these young people, like there's so much things that are just like, because all that research are so designed to like give you enjoyment, you know, like whether it's like TikTok or like social media, video games or whatever, like flashing bright lights. It's like these people need like they're fucking jonesing, you know, like they're jonesing to do like the clips, the fun stuff, you know, like it's like if they're bored, like they won't commit, right? Like they won't do it and their heart won't be in it. And it's like, so you have to do the crazy shit, you know, to like kind of make them feel alive. You know, it's like basically like you take an addict and like go cold turkey and like that kills them. But like you basically, you need to give them a little, you know, like what's the heroin users, they go to the clinic to get like the drug that's like okayed for them to take, you know, like you have to like give them the weekly appointment. I gotta find this out, like methadone. Yeah, you have to give methadone. You have to give them methadone.
I thought that saves them.
It does, but it's still like an opioid, you know, like it's not as fun, but it's still like an opioid and it still gets you like a little high, I think. I mean, I don't know. I'm not a drug user. Like, and you know, like I don't know, but and I could be totally wrong here, but whatever. Like, so it's like, I think you need to give them like the dopamine rush, you know, and I think there's nothing more. It's like, you know, you see a guy double covered, you know, like, you know, fuck it, bomb it. And like, and I think too, like with the cover 2, where it's like, you know, taking away, like, because it's like we saw Tua, you can't win a game doing just thinking ducks. You have to, like, it's a big dick league and you have to big dick it, you know? And like, yeah, like, or like, I mean, Josh Allen, right? Like, you know, now he doesn't throw picks anymore and he's still good, but I think some of the magic's lost on him. Like you gotta because it's like also then you're like fearless, right? Then it's like the big game moment, the big game doesn't matter, mistake, like because it's like, oh, if you're so focused on being perfect, then you're not perfect anymore. Then like the whole house of cards crumbles. Versus like, oh, I've been born and molded into like chaotic craziness, like whatever, like then you're gonna win. Like Jameis Winston beating who they beat like in that snow game, like the Steelers. Yeah, it's like I'm used to a knife fight, so if I bring you down to my level and knife fight you, like we're gonna win, and I think like that's why Jordan Love, like, and like I think that's why Caleb's better, because he's allowed to go off schedule, make plays, and like they don't win because like they're too used to like the chaotic bullshit, and like maybe they're like purposely doing it. Like I think there's something like we talked about, but like I think it's like you need to have have a rigid structure, and then you like do the aberrations where you do the plays, but that's like acceptable versus like you have a chaotic structure, like I don't know if that makes sense, but it's like you have to have like, oh, we're doing everything right, but then every once in a while you do craziness versus like, but that has to be okay and like part of the structure type thing. And I think that probably Campbell wins, too.
I see what you're saying here with that. I think my one comment about the baseball would be I think baseball is like an outlier when you look at the sport because you can be successful and be analytical because you play 162 games.
Yeah, and so you have a big enough sample size.
Right, and if you had 162 elections, maybe being super analytical would go better. But there's only one, and there's 16 games or 17 game season now, and you're just going to get like these random 70-yard plays, right? That change the whole game. And it's just like it's pretty much chaos. Yeah. Now, I will say though, I have a little bit of a different take on this. Okay. I think that the gunslinger mentality isn't as prevalent anymore due to the rise in ADHD, TikTok. I think guys, because they're like scrolling through their phone and like we all are, or shorts and reels and TikTok, I think they're processing information at a faster rate, and defenses are playing better, and they're actually like seeing so much shit that they're actually able to think. And that's why in the NFL you've seen interceptions come way down over the last 70 years. I was actually looking this up, and back in 1945, NFL averaged 2 interceptions per game, and today it's just under 1. So I think the ADHD might actually be helping, but I think it's helping the quarterbacks, but I also think that the defenses are better, way more complicated, and like just the coverage, disguises, the blitzes, everything going on. It's just like it's just harder. But I think that the ADHD is maybe actually helping them process it all. And to your point, though, I think you do have to add a little chaos to a game. I don't know if like doing it every play, but I think for some teams, especially for young guys, I think like taking a deep shot first play of the game, it just like loosens you up.
Worst case, it's a
punt. Otherwise you get a catch or a pass interference or something, but it just opens you up a little bit, and then you're like, all right, now I can throw the rest of the game. And like when you start the game, like we used to always just run the ball twice and then try to get a third down play. And it was like you just give no momentum, like no one's excited. No one, you can like see, you can probably see it when you're like lining up on defense, looking at the other team, like these linemen, like they don't look like they're excited to do this play, right? But like you see a trick play call, it's like all those linemen are like hustling out. They're like, look, guy. So I think quarterbacks actually like should spend more time on TikTok. I think like Kyler Murray, he's playing really well this year because he's Call of Duty all the time. Yeah, he's just processing at like next level, and he's playing great.
And I think to your point, like I don't think you can succeed anymore with a dumb QB. Like I think in the past you could, but like nowadays you have to be really smart, because it's like you said, like everything is so complicated and like fast, and like I mean I think people are just freaks, how quickly they can close to the ball, and like so it's like you have all these like weird coverages, and like I think too like we don't like I think our defensive back play, like one, they're not allowed to hard hit as much anymore. Like so it's like, okay, like you kind of get taken away with that. But also too, like, we don't have like, like the Revis anymore. Like, I mean, like these insane, cornerbacks, like sure we had Sauce and like you say, Ja, Sertan or whatever, but like truly lockdown corners just don't exist anymore. And like maybe it's because these guys are becoming wide receivers or they're going to the NBA or like whatever. I don't know. Like it just doesn't like seem cool to be a lockdown, like I don't know. And I think they're not psycho anymore. Like even Sauce, like he's like on normal, he's like doing golf stuff. Like he's like they're just no psychos anymore. And I think you have to be and I think it's like, we just don't tolerate that anymore. And it's like I think you like I mean Ja is like 101, right? Like he's a psycho, and he like is so cocky. Like you have to be like, I think modern day society is just like, oh, we're all depressed, we're all humble. And it's like, no, like to be a really good defensive back, you have to be like narcissistic. And I think we've like cultured our way out of like narcissism isn't okay anymore. And like I think that has led to the like decrease in like lockdown, like DBs, Yeah.
Yeah, no, I think it's been weird. You got to be like the guy who's willing to be on an island out there. That was Darrell Revis. Like you got to be you got to want it too. You want to be one-on-one with Justin Jefferson. Because the funny thing is, it seems like the wide receivers don't have a problem feeling that way.
No,
like they seem very confident out there, and I would bet on maybe part of it's the rules too.
Yeah,
like, it does seem like they should let a little more physicality go. But yeah, cornerbacks are usually a little smaller. I don't know. It's just a weird. It's like you celebrate when a bad pass is thrown sometimes. Too,
yeah,
and it's just like you didn't do anything there.
No.
So yeah, I don't know. It'll be fun to see what's next. Cool.
All right. Any closing thoughts for the recap of our first episode?
Honestly, I think I'm pretty good. I think I'm gonna have a couple beers.
There you go. Hopefully it's recorded.
It was fun. Hopefully recorded. We can look through it quickly and try to cut it up. Maybe just send it over to me. And,
I'll send it to you. Yeah.
And sweet, man. It's been great.
All right.
Can't wait to next week.
Moving on. Number 1. Let's go. All right. So
moving on.
All right. So I don't want to click end because
should I
stop recording. Oh, okay. Have you saved the meeting?